So you want to be untouchable in Magic, huh? Well, I can tell you how to make that happen. Greetings, hatchlings! We are here for another traipse through the tulips of Magic history. Not tulips, like on my face, you know, flowers. There's a nice dad joke for all those lovers of old, terrible dad jokes. So, what are we here to talk about? Well, we're here to talk about a Ravnica Allegiance spoiler. Now, as I've been doing so far, at least with this return to what I'm doing, I have been going back and finding cards in the past that all tie into a particular theme that leads up to the spoiler. So that's what we're going to do today as well. And what we're going to talk about is hexproof. So first of all, let's discuss what hexproof is before we narrow down the focus. Hexproof is the ability that says this thing that has hexproof cannot be the target of spells or abilities. Now, it's an ability that it evolved over time in Magic the Gathering. Originally, it started out as Shroud, and Shroud was an ability that says nobody can target this. So it affected both you and your opponent. Now, they slowly but surely removed Shroud from the game and started to replace it with hexproof, because a hexproof it's just a feel better ability. Most of the time, like, Shroud is a great ability, but the problem is when you can't target your own stuff, that's a feel bad situation. And hexproof removes that entirely because it just shuts off your opponent's ability to screw with whatever has hexproof. So we're going to talk about cards that give you, as the player specifically, hexproof. Now, it took a long time for this ability to even show up. There were no hexproof cards. Well, I mean, they had to come up with the keyword, but even when you remove the keyword from the equation and just look at cards that would be considered to have granting hexproof to a player, the first one didn't show up until 2008. And if you think about that, that's insane. Magic was invented in 1993. That means it took 15 years to come along with what feels like a very obvious ability, honestly. It seems like, okay, you want to be untargetable, don't you? I mean, you don't want hexes placed upon you. And for a moment, let's stop and talk about the flavor of hexproof as well. I really like it as a keyword. It is very, very flavorful. I mean, if you really want to get technical, hexes are just any kind of magic, but most people don't think of hexes that way. You think of hexes as like, a witch is gonna put a hex on you. She gave me the evil eye, woo! She put a hex on me, right? That's normally what you think of that way. So being hexproof really makes you think of being immune to evil magic, which I genuinely enjoy. So we're gonna start our journey with what's a funny card to me, and that is Spirit of the Hearth. Now, this card is funny to me for a number of reasons. One being it's a gigantic cat spirit, which is just great. It's 2 white, 4 colors for a 4/5 flying cat spirit. Now, the text of the ability is you can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Now, what's amusing to me about that is in upgraded versions, not upgraded, but more recent printings is what I should say. Like, for example, the Conspiracy printing, it says you have hexproof, which is great, nice and short and everything, but then in brackets, it explains the whole thing. You can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. So what's funny to me is by adding the keyword, they've actually made the card more wordy. Sure, the reminder text is more wordy, but then you've got the tiny little phrase, you have hexproof, plus all the reminder text. So it's the exact same thing put in a bracket with 3 extra words added to the card. Take a look, you can see for yourself. We'll put the 2 side by side and you can see how much more wordy it is. So that's amusing to me. The idea that it's just a cat spirit that sits on your roof like, what's up, is funny to me. And the flavor text makes me chuckle too. Thieves know that a snarl in the night means rob another house. Now, taking a greater look at the artwork, all blown up and everything, I absolutely love this spectral spirit winged lion that is just standing majestically on the rooftop. I love the contrast of how light and proud and noble he looks and how kind of dark and half sinister the village feels. I mean, it does have kind of a cozy feel to the house as well, with the lights and everything going on through the windows. But overall, it's kind of like, it's all dark and everything, because it's from the world, it's from the world of Eventide, right? And so that's the dark side of Lorwyn, so you've got a darker world. I love the way that the glow from him kind of infuses the mist that is settled down around the house, and I like his tail curled around the chimney too. Overall, very nice artwork. He stands right out, but he is also pretty easy to wipe out to get rid of the fact that you have hexproof. I like hexproof when it's tied to cards that are a little harder to get rid of. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about here. And that's Imperial Mask. Imperial Mask is an interesting one. It's 1 white and 4 colorless. It's an enchantment. It's from Future Sight, which explains the really weird look to the card. If you guys don't know what Future Sight was, it was a set where Wizards of the Coast experimented with moving outside of the normal color pie. They created a new weird card frame where you see the casting cost is actually anchored in the artwork box, and it actually has this weird curl that goes through underneath and shows through on the card. It actually kind of, it's kind of like the precursor to the treatment that they gave Planeswalkers or Eldrazi, things like that, where you can actually see more of the artwork coming through in the text box and on the type line as well. So it was very, very different. It stood out very much. I liked Future Sight and what they did with it. It was a fun set. And another cool thing about Future Sight was they had some cards in there that were seeded for future sets. So you got a taste of what was coming in the future. So on top of the name of the set being Future Sight, it was in fact kind of seeing into the future. Very enjoyable. Now, the ability of Imperial Mask is when it comes into play, if it's not a token, each of your teammates puts a token into play that's a copy of Imperial Mask. So this is cool because not only does it work on you, but if you're playing in a team game, it affects your teammates as well. Very neat. And it says you can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control, which under the current wording would just be you have hexproof. So a very, very funky card. There are not many cards that give your teammates abilities this way, and the idea that it actually creates tokens. So it's a token of an enchantment, which was very new and interesting as well. Very, very unexpected. The card turned a lot of preconceived notions on their head when it showed up. And the artwork is really evocative, honestly. This crazy mask like that shows up on your face, because when you cast it, you would end up with this mask, but then so would your teammates. So all of a sudden, you all have impassive faces, right? With this crazy like line etching design going through it. It's like a mime's face or like a porcelain mask. And I don't know if everything that comes along with, like, if you look at the mask, it looks like the hair and everything that's attached to it is also part of the mask. Because if you look up at the top, it's got like all these little holes with the hair flowing through it. And then you've got weird things all like braided in the hair. You've got gold coins and daggers and little bird skulls and bracelets and what looks like a wand. It's just full of all kinds of things. Are those supposed to be what comes together to make the Imperial Mask have its power? Is it all these little charms that make it so you're protected from all different types of hexes? I really enjoy the flavor. Every time I look at it, I wonder. It's a little weird though. If you look at her neck, you can see it looks like she's got a choker on, but it looks like at a certain point it just ends, which is really, really confusing to me because that's not part of the mask. Like there's just at that one edge of her neck, you can still see her neck. I don't know why it was left that way. I think that might just be an error with the artwork. I'm not 100% sure, but I enjoy the idea of this like statuesque. I picture this as like a noble wizard woman who's just like a statuesque kind of thing. The face gives it both an impassive look, but also it kind of has like a creepy, like Halloween-y kind of feel or like a horror movie feel to it. I don't know, there's just something about that serene smile with the mouth slightly upturned. Absolutely insane. And all the objects in the hair really mess with me. There's a plate, there's a mirror. Overall, the artwork, I could stare at it and talk about it for a long time. So let's just move on to the next card in the series here. This one is another enchantment. This is Ley Line of Sanctity. It's 2 white and 2 colorless. It's an enchantment. The crazy part about this card is if you start with it in your opening hand, you can begin with it on the battlefield. So if it's in your opening hand, you automatically get it out, and you can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. This thing is the bane, the absolute bane of direct damage burn decks. Because what are you gonna do, son? I put it out from my opening hand. Where's your lightning bolts now, chump face? Who are you gonna chain lightning now, baby? It's so good. It's so good. This card is extremely, extremely powerful in my opinion. And the artwork, I love it. I love the contrast of the glowing ley line of sanctity, which is like, if you don't know what a ley line is, they are lines of power that run through whatever plane of existence you're on, right? So every place would have ley lines of power, and this is where you would find the strongest connections to mana. Now, with this being a ley line of white mana, it's sanctified and protective. Now, I don't understand 100% how it protects the player, truthfully. I mean, do you just go and stand in that glowing center area, and as long as you stand in there, you can't be harmed? I definitely enjoy the contrast of it against this blue plane. It's like, it's a night sky, you've got all the clouds in the background, you've got an endless sea of what looks like blue roses or white roses in the night. I'm not sure if those roses are supposed to be blue or if they're white roses and it's just nighttime. But the contrast makes the ley line stand out so much. In all honesty, it's pretty simplistic art, but it also grabs you. I really like it. The only thing I have an issue with is that the flavor behind it isn't 100%. Is that energy out infusing into the roses? I don't know if this is artwork that was supposed to be used for sometimes they have artwork that was commissioned for a particular card, but cards get changed in development, so they end up with extra artwork left over and they repurpose it. So this feels like it might be repurposed artwork. Maybe this ley line was meant to do something else at first. I mean, it definitely feels like ley line artwork for sure, but whether, I just don't see the sanctity part of it. Otherwise, really like the card. The next one we have is massively flavorful, absolutely flavorful, fits perfectly with hexproof. And that is Bane Orb. We've got a 4 casting cost artifact. When it enters the battlefield, destroy all curses attached to you, and you have hexproof. Now this one's from Innistrad, and it works really well because Innistrad is where we saw all these curses first crop up. And curses are fun, flavorful cards where basically you play them on your opponent and it does detrimental effects, either when like an attack happens, or the curses do all kinds of different things based on what the particular curse is. So I love that on top of granting you hexproof, the Bane Orb also wipes out all curses attached to you. The flavor behind it, it is literally the bane of witches. Witches will come out and I'm gonna put a curse on you, and boom. Not with this orb, I don't think so. And I love the artwork on this. It's so dope. I really enjoy. This is another one where you've got a really dark world with the contrast of it going on with the lights there. You've got it hung, you've got the Bane Orb, and it's hanging between 2 stunted, probably dead trees. The entire background is black and gray and yellow. It gives you kind of a sickly, desolate feel. Innistrad is a world that is very dark, very gothic, but the Bane Orb itself is this thing of beauty. It's just beautiful, sinuous little lines of enchanted metal that swirl out in different ways, glowing, coruscating with a massive amount of blue magical energy in the middle. And there's all these tendrils of it just kind of waving out in a circular pattern, actually, kind of like you can see they're curving in different directions. And this is what protects you from being cursed and all types of magic, actually. I can picture this thing flaring out when magic comes for you, and it just puts a shield around you where the magic can find no purchase upon you. It can just not find a way to touch you. Very, very flavorful, very cool. Moving on, we have Aegis of the Gods, and we're moving back into creatures that grant hexproof. Now this one is only a white and a colorless. Funnily enough, he's an enchantment as well, which I like this. The Journey into Nyx had creatures that were made of god stuff, so they were enchantment creatures as well. So you've got Aegis of the Gods. He gives you hexproof, 2 mana for a 2/1, so you got a lot for 2 mana, really good deal. And the flavor text says, Athreos cares little for the other gods' conflict with mortals. He is concerned only with safe passage for the dead. So I assume that this is obviously a servant of Athreos who's been sent out to ensure that his will is done and that the dead are not messed with and have safe passage. Now the artwork is pretty cool. You have that whole like Greek soldier going on. His armor is really ornate. I love the helmet. The helmet has all these little etchings into it. It's got that great plume coming out. You've got the interesting like shoulder piece right down along here, and then he's got like spikes of, it looks like it might be fur coming up, but it also looks kind of almost a little bit like spiky crystal. His face is shrouded with this purple shroud. It's just some like guardian of the dead. His blade, you can actually see his blade has his blade, his arms, his arm guards, and his cloak. You can actually see the starry night sky. And this was part of the creatures that were made out of god stuff, part of the enchantment creatures from the Theros block, and specifically Journey into Nyx. Although I believe it did carry across the entire block. Very, very flavorful. And the shield is interesting as well. I don't know why you would design a shield that pulls in at the middle like this. Truthfully, it feels like if it flared out on the sides, it would be better for defending. But it does give you a nice look at the starry scape inside as well. So overall, this artwork is absolutely awesome. And the card itself is very potent as well. Moving on, we've got Orbs of Warding. This is a 5 casting cost artifact from Magic Origins. It gives you hexproof. And if a creature will deal damage to you, prevent one of that damage. 1 orb to guard the body, 1 to protect the mind, and 1 to shield the soul. That is a home run. You have these 3 orbs that you can see rotating around the wizard that they're protecting. And it's cool. 2 of them are responsible essentially for the hexproof action, and 1 of them guards the body from creature attacks. That's how I view that. It's very cool. I like the fact that the orbs are represented in 3 different colors. The artwork looks fantastic. Again, this is another one where we're dealing with a dark kind of gloomy setup, but it looks like this wizard is standing in some kind of summoning circle. You can see stone obelisks kind of floating in the air all around him. He looks absolutely intense. Honestly, the look of the wizard, he looks like he is going to cast some seriously evil magic. And this might actually have originally been repurposed artwork, because if you look at the artwork, it's got a very sinister feel to it, and all of the orbs are trailing black, dark, smoky, kind of evil looking magic. This could have easily been an attack spell, and it feels like it might have started out that way, because this looks like a black aligned creature or a black aligned sorcerer here casting some kind of powerful dark magic. And honestly, nothing about this artwork evokes the concept of protection to me, truthfully, if you look at it. I mean, look, even down to his fingernails. He has black painted fingernails. I mean, sure, this could be some kind of dark necromancer planeswalker, but this definitely feels like repurposed artwork to me. But it still fits. I mean, with the flavor text, with the concept behind the card, he could easily have Orbs of Warding and just being preparing to do something vile from within the Orbs of Warding. So it definitely doesn't ruin it, but it does make me feel like the art has been repurposed. The next card I have to talk about here is Sigarda, Heron's Grace. This one's from Shadows over Innistrad. It's a 4/5 flying legendary angel for 1 white, 1 green, and 3 colorless. It gives you and humans you control hexproof. And for 2 mana, you exile a card from your graveyard, put a 1/1 white human soldier creature token onto the battlefield. I really like this. This is the concept of an angel warding over humans. She's there to protect humankind. I like the fact that she can muster up soldiers as well. I enjoy too, when it comes to the artwork, she has a very dark and ominous feel to her. This is a good feel for the world of Innistrad, where, yeah, she's an angel, but there's just, it almost like her staff feels almost like a sickle, but it's got that heron's head. The way that it's being held, yes, it is a bird's head, but it has that sickles feel, like she's like a reaper. And I don't know, a lot of angels give you a kind of feeling of hope, but even like her, like the parts of her cloak, or not cloak, but the parts of cloth that are coming down from under her chest plate there, they almost have a raggedy feel to them. She's not like a perfectly clean, shining, brilliant angel that's coming in. She's got a dark cast to her and that unearthly glow coming out of her eyes. I really enjoy the dark, depressing atmosphere they have behind her. She doesn't look happy. Her hair isn't all bright and beautiful. Her hair looks kind of like old and ragged. Shadows over Innistrad was a dark time, so she's a good representation of that. And I love the fact that the hexproof for you and humans is such a bizarre combination. She'll protect over the planeswalker and humans specifically. Very nice. Moving on to an angel that has a much lighter, happier feel. We're going to talk about Shalai, Voice of Plenty from Dominaria. This card is fantastic. 1 white, 3 colorless for a legendary angel with flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. So she protects all your creatures, your planeswalkers, and you. On top of that, she's got an ability aligned with green, which is pretty funky. 2 green, 4 colors, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So not only does she protect, but she also boosts. I like the Voice of Plenty. The plenty part ties into both who she will protect and also the boosting of creatures. Now, in terms of the artwork, absolutely gorgeous. My God, this is so beautiful. She does have kind of a thick mannish face, in my opinion, but she looks so like just tough. She's got multiple levels of armor coming up over her gigantic wings, which are spread out in almost like a gigantic shield-like fashion, which I enjoy. I like the little, I don't know what you call the cloth that goes up under the chest plate, because she's got the same thing. Now hers is sparkling clean and sizzling, and she's got the gold embroidery along the bottom of it with what looks like some hearts, I think. I think that's what it is. She's got an insanely long braid of hair. That's her hair actually coming all the way down. It starts there and it goes all the way down. Like, think about how long, that's got to be 10 feet of hair in a braid. I love the sense of perspective of her high up above. Like, she is protecting all far up in the sky. And the forest laid out beneath her looks fantastic in its greenery, but it also ties in to her plus ability that gives a bonus to everybody. So that's absolutely fantastic in my books. And I like the fact that it's like set against either dusk or dawn, where you've got that, like, I'm guessing it's kind of like a little sliver of the dawn there that's behind her. It looks absolutely amazing. The artwork is a super home run. Just her there with her shield ready and her sword down at the side. She looks great and is a really powerful card. So that leads us to the spoiler for today, the Ravnica Allegiance spoiler, which is Gruul Spellbreaker. So for 1 green, 1 red, and 1 colorless, you get a 3/3 Ogre Warrior. She has Riot, so when this creature enters the battlefield, you get to choose to give it either a +1/+1 counter or haste. It's got Trample, and as long as it's your turn, you and Gruul Spellspeaker have hexproof. So it's a variation on other creatures that give hexproof, in that it only gives hexproof on your turn, but it protects the Gruul Spellbreaker from hexproof. This thing is fantastic to stop annoying garbage like Settle the Wreckage if you're into standard right now. It definitely has a Gruul feel in terms of the Riot, where it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to hit harder or do you want to hit faster? Those are your 2 options when it comes to the Riot, +1 or haste, right? So that's cool. Trample obviously makes sense. And the artwork, the Gruul Spellbreaker, okay, she's there smashing up. It looks like she's in an Izzet Foundry smashing up Izzet works. Now, I honestly, when I look at the artwork, I genuinely don't understand how this is granting hexproof. It feels like something that would actually destroy artifacts. That's what the art, like, when you look at it. Oh, the flavor text, before I forget, is she displays her scars with pride. And it's like, all right, well, I don't actually see, I don't see any scars on her. So there's no scars on her. It looks like she's smashing up artifacts, so I don't see how she grants hexproof. So the whole Riot thing is like, it's not really well illustrated here in the artwork. The fact that she's smashing stuff up, it's just, the artwork doesn't work with the ability, in all honesty. The card does not tie together nicely. Man, she is ugly. She looks fierce. She's got all kinds of tribal tattoos, which are cool, but I don't see any scars on her. Why would you talk about her displaying her scars with pride? I mean, what are the scars supposed to be? A +1 counter that she got from hitting this? Like, look, she just smashed through this. She just literally smashed through glass, and her skin is untouched. I suppose